Himself. Here we are.
Hello. Hi. Okay, hold on one moment. Let me just close the door. Okay. Let me close the window. It's very noisy.
Oh, you're indoor. You're not out in a park.
Yeah, no, I decided not to go out. Yeah, it's pretty noisy, but I'll close the windows. It should be better. Okay, so, hi.
Hi. Good evening, and thank you for taking the time to be on VonkRadio. It's very much appreciated.
No problem.
So, the Amsterdam Shallow Man. Maybe because your identity is hidden, this is a weird question to ask, but what can you tell us about yourself?
What can I tell you? Well, I am I guess what you Netherlanders call a kut expat. So I moved here like many others. People move here usually for work, love, or study. I actually moved here for work at the time. I used to work in the sort of IT management area, and so I actually moved here, did that, and actually I started initially the Amsterdam Shallow Man blog, if you like. I started that really as a hobby, mainly because what I noticed, as an expat, I would read other expat blogs or blogs that were targeted at expats, and I was always amazed at how nice they were. I always thought, God, they're so sickly sweet, and they're just so nice. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of really wonderful things about this country, but I think a bit of constructive criticism is definitely needed. And I just found a lot of blogs were written by very content, cozy, middle class wives of people, and it was all about me and my back feet cycling through the Jordan, and it's so beautiful, and I love it. And aren't Dutch people tall, and aren't stroke waffles great? And it was all just a bit too positive. I thought, I think it's really important that someone just points out that it's not all stroke waffles and canals on sunny days. There are other things going on in this country. So I just started, with my own observations, and I must say I was surprised at the reaction. One thing I really learned is that you Dutch guys, are very thin skins. You guys really can't handle any kind. You really can't handle criticism well.
I am Italian, and I fully agree with this.
That is actually not at all how the Dutch perceive themselves. They're like, we're straightforward. We're telling you what you think.
You just got offended right now.
No, I'm just pointing out that it's hilarious.
There's a huge gap.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say there's a huge gap between the Dutch self-perception and reality, because of course, I think when I moved here, I had all the same preconceptions. Yeah, I heard, the Dutch, they're super tolerant and liberal and open-minded. But of course, that's just the PR that you guys use to get people to come over here.
To get our taxes.
The reality is slightly different.
Okay, but you still decided to do it in a positive way, because with a lot of humor.
Yeah, of course. I'm British, so humor is kind of, it's humor runs right through most Brits. So, yeah, I decided. I mean, obviously, humor and irony are great ways to get a message across, I think. So, And of course, a lot of things that I write, a lot of things I write about, I do write it with a sarcastic eye, and I do say, life in the Netherlands through the eyes of a sarcastic expat. I use a lot of sarcasm because I am naturally quite sarcastic, but I also think it's, I think humor is a great way to communicate with people. But of course, not everyone understands sarcasm, for example. So I've had it before. I mean, I have a lot of Dutch followers as well as expats. I do have a lot of Dutch followers as well, which proves that a lot of Dutch people obviously do have a good sense of humour. But I've had some of the hate mails I've had in the past, or some of the comments you get from people. I think some people really take things literally, and don't go beneath the surface, don't read between the lines. And I get, and over the years, I've received a lot of comments like, "You hate the Dutch. Why do you live here, man? If you don't like it, run up naar je eigen land." I get a lot of these kind of comments, and I just think, wow, if someone was in the UK, if a Dutch person in the UK wrote a blog and wrote about bigoted Brexit voting Brits, it wouldn't bother me at all. Yeah. I would probably just laugh and go, yeah, I agree. But I was amazed that, when I made the comment about, well, a lot of Dutch people have thin skins, I think there is this kind of knee-jerk reaction. I've noticed myself, and I read obviously Dutch media as well. I've noticed that a lot of Dutch people are very happy to make comments and generalizations about other countries. The US, Americans, fat, they carry guns, they're racist. I get a lot of these comments, and especially comments about Eastern Europeans and so on. But I think if you turn the spotlight back on the Dutch and make jokes about certain aspects of Dutch life, some people get very offended, like deeply offended. And it's amazing to me that people take things that way.
Yeah.
So is this why you keep your identity a secret, for fear of retaliation in the street?
No, I mean, it's actually quite convenient, but no, it was actually a deliberate ploy, just so I would stand out from all the contented, mummies and cozy expat bloggers. I just wanted to do something different, and I thought that was a great idea. So that was largely why.
And so, what other misconceptions do the Dutch people have about themselves?
Well, I think the biggest misconception is tolerance. The Dutch believe themselves to be tolerant. Dutch tolerance, my God, I've written a lot about Dutch tolerance. And I find Dutch tolerance is, that for me is the biggest con trick of all time. I think in the past in the Netherlands, maybe people were more tolerant, but I think there's a big confusion about what tolerance really means. Because, I mean, let's face it, reality is millions of Dutch people vote for parties like the PVV, the Geert Wilders Party. You vote for, what's his name, Thierry Baudet.
Yeah.
Thierry Baudet. There's a lot of... And, and I remember, what's his name, the bald-headed guy who was assassinated. The guy who started off this whole thing, what was his name? The guy who had before the PVV came along, and Rita Verdonk. Before that, before Trots Op Nederlands, there was another major party.
Do you mean Pim Fortuyn?
Forgot the name of the guy. Pim Fortuyn. That's the guy. Yeah, Pim Fortuyn. So if you look at the popularity of Pim Fortuyn, and then what followed him, and then then Rita Verdonk. Well, what happened to her? She's sort of disappeared now. She's gone. But then. Yeah, she's gone now. Trots Op Nederlands, I remember that. And the PVV. A lot of people in this country vote for parties that are clearly intolerant.
Yeah, and that is definitely true.
Yeah, millions of people vote for parties. I mean, let's face it, I believe in the previous election, in fact, the PVV, just by the number of votes, had the second largest number of votes in this country. So that says a lot about, tolerance. And... So that was really one thing. But then, of course, I must say, when I moved here, I lived in a very cozy expat bubble. I didn't really pay that much attention to what was actually going on in the country I was living in, which is a typical expat thing. I didn't really pay that much attention. I started to, but initially I didn't. And then, of course, along came the Zwarte Piet, and I think that was... very, very interesting. At the time where UN spokesperson, dared to criticize Zwarte Piet. And that really, for me, was the first time my eyes opened. It was like the scales fell away from my eyes, and I saw the country in a different light. Because then suddenly, what was always interesting to me about the whole Zwarte Piet discussion, regardless of, pro, contra, but was what I always found amusing with the Zwarte Piet discussion was that, especially on, Dutch social media. So, I mean, when you read the comments pages of NOS or RT5 or some of the Dutch media, that whenever, you always have a sentence, ik ben geen racist, I'm not racist, maar, and then what would usually follow were sentences of pure out and out racial hatred. Some of the most outrageous, really racist comments would always follow. And, so it was really like, yeah, okay. So all these people saying, yeah, Zwarte Piet, it's a tradition, has nothing to do with colour. But if the black people don't like it, they can go back to their country. And you think, well, come on, guys. These people are born in the Netherlands. You can't really say, yeah, well, they haven't just hopped off the boat or off the plane. They're born in the Netherlands. They have Dutch nationality, and they also have a right in a democracy to express their opinions. That's what being a democracy is all about. Otherwise, we should live in a society like North Korea and just have the leader tell us what's right and what's wrong. Yeah. So I think that whole discussion, for me, whether you're pro or contra, just showed that there's a big misunderstanding about what tolerance really means. Yeah. Because, that's, I think, brought out the worst in a lot of people, and a huge number of people. But actually, on the positive side, what I would say, over the years, I recall, it used to be during the Sinterklaas season that in many shop windows, you'd get leaflets through the door. There'd be all these kind of, Zwarte Piet toys or caricatures and Zwarte Piet figures, people blacked up in adverts on the TV, and it was everywhere. But actually, quite sensibly, in the last few years, that has really changed.
Yeah,
so
it's becoming less. An interesting fact for you to know is that Volt was one of the first political parties in the Netherlands to speak up against the use of Zwarte Piet. And I was the one doing it, and it's incredible how much hate reactions you get for saying such a thing. What I'm also curious about is, how do you look at, as an expat from the UK coming living in Amsterdam, how have you perceived Brexit?
Brexit is very clear to me, because the way I perceive Brexit, it's largely people voting out of utter ignorance and a gut feeling. It's the worst. It's the worst of the worst. I mean, this is why usually referendums are a bad idea here. You don't govern by referendum. If you govern by referendum, then in the UK you would still have capital punishment. People would still be being hung or executed by the state. Innocent people would be being hung and executed by the state. This is why you don't have referendums, because people vote with their gut feelings, right? And in the UK, what you've had ever since, obviously, the expansion of the European Union, and you had a lot of people from Poland and Romania and a lot of the eastern countries coming to the UK and actually doing very well. Polish plumbers, people fight to get a Polish plumber or kitchen fitted by a Polish worker, and Romanians, whatever. And people come over, and these people are hard working. But the reality is that there was for years and years and years, there was a lot of negative media. So in the tabloids, the Daily Mail, the Sun, the Daily Star, there was a constant drip feed of anti-EU poison. And that really seeped through. So a lot of people who don't like to think, who don't like to do research, who just like a soundbite and just like to be loud and talk nonsense in pubs, really fell for it. And that's what you had. There wasn't really much reflection. And people went into voting for Brexit with the idea that, the UK, at the time, the UK was, I believe, the 5th largest economy in the world at the time of the Brexit referendum vote. And the idea was, there was generally a belief in the UK that, the EU needs us more than we need them. So they'll give us everything we want. So, why not leave? It's not a big deal. they're going to kind of come to us on bended knee, they need our money, etc. And of course, the reality has turned out to be is something completely different. And people are quite shocked that, I thought just being in the UK would be enough. But this is, in the UK, there's always been a subtle or not so subtle streak of jingoism and nationalism, which usually only used to manifest itself at the time of, important football matches, etc. Generally not, because generally the UK, I've always thought the UK has been pretty tolerant, but I honestly think it's a number of things. But ultimately, Brexit is really what happens when you let a bunch of people who are ill-informed and who have actually been kind of partly brainwashed by the media for years and years. This is what happens. If you actually take a Brexit voter one-on-one and you say to them, well, so tell me, what will you get? January the 1st officially, the transition period is over. So, what benefits will the UK gain? And usually what you'll get are just sound bites. We'll take control of our borders. Mm-hmm. Well, this coronavirus crisis has shown that members of the EU are quite able to close their borders or manage their borders as they see fit. So this is, you've seen it with the Netherlands and Germany and Belgium. They've all brought in different kind of rules on who can enter the country because of the coronavirus. So it's always been possible. I mean, this is why what you ultimately get down to is, the blue passports. What you really get down to is, we get blue passports back, but that blue passport will be worth much less than the UK passport was before, because now, instead of being able to freely travel and live in 27 other countries, well, that's it now. You'll be limited as a UK citizen, I believe. You can go live in Scotland or Ireland, and Wales, and that's about it. So I just think it's a disaster, and if anything, the coronavirus is a blessing for the British government, because what they'll be able to do when there are food shortages in January, which there will be delays, and they'll be able to blame it on the coronavirus. And not, they'll be able to kind of shift the blame onto, yes, we're having shortages, but it's related to the coronavirus. So, sorry for the long rant.
No worries. No worries. So, you already sound nostalgic.
Shallow Man, since you won't give me your name, my name is Annelies, and I want to make...
Alice.
Hello, Shallow Man, and I want to make sure that when I meet you on the street in Amsterdam, that I recognize you. So, one thing, you said yourself that you're British, but of course I already could hear that, when you had spoken one word. So you're British, you like a little bit of sarcasm, which is good. You explained about the Brexit, but you're definitely a remainder because you're here in Amsterdam. And what I noticed is that you're not quite sparse with your words. You speak rather well. So talking about being sparse, the Dutch always say that we call that frugal, but some people call us stingy. I mean, how do you look at that? How do you recognize us in that?
How do I recognise the Dutch in stingy? Well, I think organised religions aren't actually that very big here, but there is one God that everyone actually worships in this country, and that is called tikkie. So, when you look at the whole tikkie culture, I mean, that for me is something that really marks the Netherlands kind of separately, really, from so many other countries. I find the whole tikkie culture, which I've written about, people send me examples. People send me screenshots and say, "Shallow Man, look at this."
What's the most ridiculous one you've gotten?
The most ridiculous one I think I received was literally, it was something like someone sent someone a tikkie of, I think it was 25 cents and it was 25 cents, and it really was it mayo on the patatia. It was really like a few fries and mayonnaise. So actually,
that's even worse than the tikkie we're going to send you for this Skype call.
But tikkie, I mean, yeah, because what's interesting is that ABN AMRO launched tikkie in Germany, but it really didn't take off. Whereas, it really wasn't such a success there. Whereas, of course, here it's huge. Micropayments. You can actually, you can bill someone 25 cents, or you could bill someone. I saw another one, was it, where someone actually, I guess it was a date that went wrong, and someone actually even billed someone a percentage of their monthly Netflix subscription to say, evening Netflix subscription. It's just incredible. I mean, actually, the Dutch are a nation of creatives and artists, so the creativity is really, let rampant and loose on tikkie. So the creativity you see there, what people will kind of be, the demands they'll make are actually quite impressive in a way.
So, and how long have you been the Amsterdam Shallow Man now?
I've been doing this will now be, oh my word, I believe it's must be 7 years now. Wow.
7 years?
Yeah, I think.
Wow.
Yeah,
and so
7 years.
If you look back at those 7 years, is there one specific joke you've made that you are particularly proud of?
And one you're not.
Yes.
Only jokes that I'm particularly proud of. Well, I suppose a joke I'm really proud of, because it's a standard thing that's used now by a lot of expats, was I wrote a post once called Essential Tips on Dating. And in that post, and this was based on feedback I'd received from a lot of people, and in that post I made a number of comments, but I think the thing I'm really proud of is that I made a comment about the typical Dutch guy's hair, and I actually used a picture from The Lion King with the hair, sort of streaked back with hair gel, and I kind of said, if you run your hands through,
I don't know if you can see us now.
You can see it now. The comment about the Lion King hair, that really took off. So a lot of expats always make jokes about, Dutch guy's hair with the gel, the Lion King, streaked back. So
I think I'm guilty.
Particularly proud of. Yeah, the Dutch guys' love of hair gel. Oh, and brown shoes. There's a particular kind of, I don't know what it is here, but I've never seen so many brown shoes in my life. So, and I thought I was the only one, and I made this observation in a post, and then a lot of people said, "Yeah, what is it with the brown shoes? Yeah, why do so many guys wear brown shoes?" So, I guess that would be one of them.
I think I know the answer to that. It's a lack of taste.
Which expands the food most of the time.
different taste, but yeah.
And Mateo's question: what's the joke you're not proud of?
The joke I'm not proud of. Yeah, I don't know, because jokes. The thing with jokes always. You make. Usually, I don't put much thought into jokes. To be honest with you, I kind of sometimes when I write, I look back on the page and I'm amazed that I actually wrote it. So it's usually they're just spontaneous and they come. So. I don't know, maybe a joke I'm not proud of. Well, initially, maybe a joke that irritates me now that I don't use anymore. But I used to observe, I like to make comments about Dutch fashion. And of course, Dutch women, Annelies, Dutch women are not very fond of high heel shoes. So I coined this kind of joke saying, when a Dutch woman goes out in her dangerously flat shoes. and that was just a general term. And then, of course, I got lots of comments from Dutch women saying, yes, but, it's not practical to wear heels because the streets, you just break them on the streets and we cycle, etc., etc., etc. So for the pain it caused me, I wish I'd never made that joke.
I see people nodding here. Yeah, it is. It's
it got super tense.
Well, come to The Hague. Make it different there.
Okay, well, I think we've finished our time for this conversation. Thank you very much, Mr. Shallow Man.
No
I enjoyed
problem.
this conversation, and I hope you can continue the next 7 years with making jokes about us, because I think not taking yourself too seriously is a character trait I always like. So please continue to make a fool out of us.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.
Okay, are we immediately still live in the studio talking? Yes, I think we are. I thought this conversation was pretty cool. He has some interesting stuff about how there's misconceptions from the Dutch.
Yeah.
I mean, not being tolerant.
Yeah.
I think if you look at our history from 1600 to about 1990, we were indeed very tolerant towards other people's beliefs and religions. And I am actually quite ashamed by the fact that people like Geert Wilders and Thierry Baudet made our society a lot less tolerant.
Yeah.
Or I don't think they made it that way. I think it was symptoms that they are a symptom of.
They're
It's
the
the other way
reflection
around.
of it.
Yeah.
But I agree with him. We're not that tolerant at all.
But I also think it needs to be noticed that when it comes to online behavior and the number of comments you get, I think that every country has a
I was going to
20%
say,
or
are we
15,
unique?
20% of people that are, irreparably racist. And now
And
they just have a voice through
Yeah.
social media, like everyone has a voice, it's
Yeah.
great. So you just
Yeah.
hear them more.
And
Yeah.
do you know the law of Godwin?
No.
The law of Godwin is a scientist that made a theory about the long, and it's actually turned out to be a law. The longer an online discussion takes, the higher the probability there is that there's a comparison with the Second World War. So people, the longer a discussion lasts, the sooner you get people to call you a Nazi or all these things. So we actually, when I started being online more for Volt, I had a bingo card with all the Second World War comparisons that we got, and eventually we checked all boxes.
Yeah.
Do you actually reply to people's comments, or for your mental health? Do you?
I think I didn't have the time at the previous campaign to answer to all replies, which was sad because there was also a lot of interesting questions that I couldn't answer to. But our organization wasn't that far yet that I could do my social media together with others, because doing it on your own while traveling through the country and being in debates and stuff was sometimes too much. And that the positive side effect of that was that I didn't really have time to read the negative things.
Right.
But my friends would screenshot the funniest ones and send them to me. And I must say, quite often, they have a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
Well, humor is a powerful language, I think. So,
Yes, definitely.
So, but I think it's for Volt, now that we ourselves want to reach out more to the public, we should be open to also, receive the comments and reactions and take that seriously. So we are going to be prepared for that, I'm sure.
Yes.
I hope so.
I hope so too. And I hope that we can bring a lot of humor in our campaigns from now on.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah.
The Amsterdam Shallow Man is a good example.